Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Kneeland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. On today's topic, we're going to talk about Jesus world building. What is it and what is it that we're looking for? How Jesus constructed a spiritual kingdom built not on institutions but on transformation, unity, and love is something that we're going to be exploring today. We'll also explore what it means to be born again, how Jesus-themed spaces, online and in person, can become extensions of the kingdom within, and how sharing these worlds deepens our spiritual connection. And we'll reflect on podcasting as a modern-day parable, a way to make the teachings of Jesus accessible, living, and real. Today's guest is Greg Mueller, a sociologist turned disciple with a PhD and an entire career devoted to research, policy, and service. After decades in public sector leadership, Greg shifted into a chapter answering the call to serve as a handyman for Jesus. He's an author, husband, father of four, and a man committed to deepening his friendship with Christ above all else. So welcome, Greg.
Thank
it's a
you.
pleasure
I'm
having you here.
Happy to be on there.
Awesome. And we're going to be talking about this concept that you named Jesus world building, and there's different aspects to it. But I think it's interesting to hear your take on your story, how you got to this point, how you got to where you are, and having this commitment and this drive to believe in this and to live in this. So in this segment, we're going to be talking about being born again, the true reset. In this first segment, we'll explore what Jesus meant when he spoke about being born again, not as a ritual, not as a slogan, but as a genuine spiritual reboot. We'll look at how this inner rebirth reshapes priorities, identity, and relationship with God. This is the starting point of Jesus world building, a transformed heart. So, Greg, tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to this point.
In 2015, I had a experience that can be described at three different levels of language. Low glory language or common language, you say, well, you had a, a mental health breakdown. And that would be satisfactory for most people. They'd say, okay, that's what it was. And that's the low glory is what we all can um, share in a pluralistic society um, in common without people freaking out that you're getting all religious-y on them. Uh, Another way to talk about what happened to me in 2015 is an and condition. I would agree with, yeah, I had some kind of um, midlife crisis. So but it's the nature of that crisis that intrigues me. So um, at the medium glory level, the glory of the moon, say, to use a scriptural phrase. We just talked about the glory of the stars, the low glory. Don't burn us up with all your religious, mystical stuff. Just tell us what happened. I had a mental breakdown. Okay, but at the medium glory, this is something that religious people could. I said it actually ended up being a blessing. So, like when people hit rock bottom and they find themselves in AA,
Mm-hmm.
they will begin to use a language that has a little bit of mysticism, where you're talking about a higher power. You will not be able to understand your alcoholism without entering into a relationship of what happened to you with something that's higher than you. And so that's a medium glory language and is able to being shared within groups of believers. And of course, you can share it with unbelievers. You just have more tension when you do that. If you go to Walmart and say "Merry Christmas, God bless you," you might kind of upset the apple cart, so to speak, because you're expected to use a kind of a lower glory language. Can we just say Happy Holidays? Yeah. So get along, go along language. But then there's the medium glory, the glory of the moon. Well, what happened to me to fully, and that's now I'm going to do another and condition. I would say, yes, that's true, that I had an experience that was kind of, it was like a storm in my life, and it ended up blessing me. And setting me off on a hero's journey. That's a language we can, that's a language of literature that we can understand that experience from. But there's another language that I
Mm-hmm.
really like, and it's called high glory language. And that's the and as well. So all three languages do describe what happened to me. So in 2015, I was born again. I I gave up my life to Christ. There was a still small voice inside of me, and he said his name was Jesus. Now, when I say he said his name was Jesus, I'm having to speak English. I don't. He did not talk to me in what we would call English. He taught to me. Anyone who's familiar with the workings of the Spirit knows. Yes, he knows English, but he generally talks to you in like what's artistic. It's like feelings, impressions,
Your
yeah,
emotions, yeah.
synchronicities, and it. Um, did I know that he spoke in that language before? I would say yes, but it was so pronounced, that experience, that it started opening me up to a curiosity. What happened to me? So over the years, I realized I think I'd been born again. And I knew that. And so I started talking in a higher glory language in inappropriate places. So something had possessed me, um, and it did so because on a spiritual spectrum, because you can use that language as well, uh, the lower spectrum, and God works with people on this spectrum. Um, the lower spectrum would be kind of pragmatists who prefer to understand the world just kind of as it's given. So they like practical things, and kind of want to go very light on anything that's mystical. And then on that spectrum, there's a more medium level, and there's people who like some and life is best explained by things that are otherworldly, but they might kind of go light on that. And there's probably a lot of stuff in that
Okay.
middle area. I'm not in that middle area. I was born to be extreme. I'm on the extreme end of the spectrum. Um, and so those are the mystics. Those are people who some people would say they are so heavenly minded they're no earthly good. I'm like, yeah, I'm always in danger of being too heavenly minded. Now the pragmatists, those on the lower end, one could complain and say they're too earthly minded to be any heavenly good. When things come wrong that can't be easily explained, they're groping to say, how do I explain this in any earthly terms? And I just like, you really can't. That there's aspects of life, and even they know that there's aspects of life that can only be explained by things that aren't uh, normal English. God's ways are not man's ways. So, what I just laid out there, spectrum, these frameworks, is kind of how I think, and God knows that. So, in 2015, he condescended. He goes, "Okay, Greg, I've come to have a deeper relationship with you." And he did, and he then started speaking in a language that I have to interpret, because that's what you have to do with God. At least that's what my friends and everybody says. Yeah, you kind of have to interpret what is he saying to you, and then you bring it into English and formulate. Well, I think he's telling me to do this or that, um, and so that's what I did. I formulated an understanding that I was born again, and I could correlate it with the scriptures, and I could correlate it with what was happening to other people. What I'd grown up in the Christian faith, Church of Jesus Christ Latter Day Saints, LDS, formerly called Mormons, still call it Mormons if you want. Um, and so
Yes.
that's what I had to go with. And the cool thing I've learned about Jesus, he can go wherever you start from, on that walk. So that's
Yeah, it's
yeah. So
regardless
I
of where you
opened up
start.
a big can there,
Yeah.
but that's I had a big experience, and I went to interpret it. That was the experience. Yeah.
Nice. There's a lot of here to analyze, and I like what you were talking about the medium glory, the low glory, or I mean these different levels, and and that each one that depends on. It's kind of you can move, I believe, as well. You can, like you're saying, you can start from anywhere, but it's interesting that there's different levels, and you can progress. I assume so. In particular, do you want to talk about your particular story or what drove you to that? A little bit of what was that in breaking standpoint, because it's interesting, and a lot of people want to relate to that experience, and maybe are going through a transforming experience, and to understand a little bit of what you went through might be
Yeah, I would
good
hope
for them.
that's my hope when I was anticipating this podcast. Like, I hope it's not about me. I hope it's about somebody else, God, because that's what He puts in me. He's like, enough about you already, Greg. And you're like, well, okay, well, all I have is my story, and so I pray that He'll guide whatever this is, so that somebody out there that can use this can use it. But after 10 years of working with Jesus to one understand what He wants from me, what He's doing with me. Um, I realized that I was born in a way that He wanted. That um, that scene from the Les Miserables. Um, there's a chapel scene where he tears up his Jean Valjean tears up his convict papers and scatters them to the winds, and chooses a different way. Um, it's it's an archetype that you see in the Matrix, blue pill or red pill, taking the red pill. It's the hero's journey. Well, I was born aching for that. I was born not liking this world, the regular world, the low glory world. Um, Somehow He had wired me
Okay.
that I was always seeking whatever I was doing. I'm seeking more. I'm seeking for something different. And so I was, that's what prepared me. I mean, He told me, "You've always been seeking a, a different world, and it has different names, the kingdom of God on earth." It's an approximation. It's not heaven per se, but it is at the same time.
It's striving for, and I think, I mean, this is interesting because, I mean, we are being and trying to be godlike in perfection, and I think that if we follow that path, it's the right path into at least progressing. You know, we can't be perfect as God, at least not in this life or at this moment. But I think it's a very noble vision and strive. You know, striving to be godlike. What better thing to
Yeah,
do?
and that's
Yeah.
he satisfactorily answered my questions about that. He said, "This is heaven. You have low glory, medium glory, and high glory. I prepared this world like the Garden of Eden. This is a place where I want you to have experiences that are faith based. So I'm going to build deniability into everything, even the most precious things I give you. You can deny them, and there's reasons why you can question them. And that's by design. So I had to become more comfortable with that because I don't like it. I'd like things to be sure, and that's my carnal self that wants something that's sure and solid and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't move
Certainty.
around. And so in my born again experience, he gave me
Yeah.
what he does give all who seek it, crutches. So one of the crutches he gives people, it's a huge one, the scriptures. So he'll give sets of scriptures to people, his word. And you can hear his voice in it. You read it and you're hearing his voice, just like if I read Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn, I'm hearing somebody's voice. It's the author's voice that I'm hearing. And that's what God did. That's what I believe is he gave some stuff that got translated to English. And so, it's not like perfect because it's been handled by men, but it's enough. And so, one of the things I've had to do to build my relationship with Christ is accept, Greg, this is as good as it's going to get. And now let's proceed with that. And so one of the crutches he gave me in addition to the scriptures, he's given me what's called a world. And it's a framework, but it's not an unfamiliar one. So there's authors. If you used AI or Googled, how do authors use the concept or the framework of worlds to frame their understanding of their books and their narratives? That's a familiar conceptual tool. So you have the Marvel universe, but you also have authors that are writing books and they want to place their characters uh, and the narrative, the story within this holistic framework so that they can attend to all the relevant parts. And so in 2015, that's what really I got excited about because he spoke to me and showed me, kind of like in a vision, um, what is coming in the future. and we're probably 10 years away from it, but the ability to take what is inside of us, our most precious things, and give an um, a external expression to them, and that's what books do. You can have a book inside you. That's different. If you can get the book out of you, Mark Twain, then we can all read it and we can all see it. We can interpret it, and we might interpret it differently than you do, Mark Twain, but it's much more powerful. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And God, it'd be helpful if you can take what's in your mind and dump it into some written symbols that we can interpret. And so God created this thing that you can think of as a world, scripture world. So I know that you have both the Bible, and then what's the other scripture you have, Santiago, the Yoranta, or
The Urantia book,
yes,
the Urantia book, yeah.
and so he's given these things to help us in his our relationship with him. Well, what he gave me is kind of what I needed, is a holistic framework to approach this relationship with. Then I could trust him better because I could see. Of course, I'm not able to hold on to all parts of the elephant. Maybe I've got the tail, but I needed to see the whole thing. Like, what are you doing overall here? I
Yeah.
know I only hold the tail. I can't tell you what the tusk is like, but yeah, go ahead.
I like the way that you're seeing and the way that you're framing this world and this concept and this, you're telling us about you were born again in 2015 and you had this vision about these Jesus world and you used the analogy of or the comparison to the Marvel universe and all these universes that are now popping out, and that you had this vision of what was to come, and probably you're stating that within maybe 10 years. Next, we turn to the idea of creating Jesus worlds, environments both digital and physical that reflect his teachings. From online communities to real-world gatherings, what does it mean to build spaces that carry the values of love, unity, and service? And how do we avoid turning these spaces into institutions, instead keeping them alive, personal, and spiritual? So tell us about a little bit of this vision.
So one of the things Jesus taught me is that he's building a world with every person, whether they're witting or unwitting. Unwitting means you don't even know it's happening to you. You're just going through the experience. And most human experiences are like that. The most deep experiences we have are just experiences, and we're not aware of all the different things we're learning. So much of what I even learn, even though I've got this holistic framework, much of what I learn is unwitting. He just gives me experiences, and I don't know. I'm like the Karate Kid, waxing cars and painting fences, and then later I
Yeah.
realize, oh my goodness, you had me go through these experiences so that I can do this next thing. And nonetheless, what's going to come is witting world building. That's what, so people like those who designed the Marvel Universe or the Wonderful World of Disney, or their authors like J.K. Rowling, they have, and they actually use that term, world building. They're going to build a world, and then they can describe that world, and they can have themes within that world. So you just described some of the themes that I want in my world. And that's where the power of world building is. You can
Mhm.
start saying, "Oh, so I can treat this like writers and directors do, where I could have a movie that has thematic elements that run throughout the whole thing. So I can pay really attention to how does this movie open up, and so we have terms like the overture." Um, and that's a musical thing that starts at the first, and you're going to hear that throughout the whole, or variations of it, variations on the theme throughout the whole movie.
Yeah. Like in Star Wars, we hear that a lot in Star Wars. A lot of the Luke's theme, Leia's theme, and they change to minor, and it's a certain variations. And when you get to the epic parts of the story, you always hear it, and it's more bombastic than when you're in a mellow part of
Yes,
the song, right?
yes,
Or
that's right.
the
And
movie.
and God has given us movies as these patterns. And what's coming, he's about to give us, and we're on the cusp of it because they're already coming, technologies that will allow common people to say, oh, I would like my world and my world story to have thematic elements. And just like websites, you'll be able to go look at these websites and say, oh, I want mine to kind of look like that, steampunk. Or in my case, those visual elements hasn't been as important as the story elements. So when you said in this intro unity, love. Those are things I want to have expressed. In fact, one of my main one is rest, because I told you when I was born I didn't like this world, and I never have. There's just and you know the things I don't like about it. It's so burdensome. And Jesus said, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you." And then he said, "I will give you rest." And that's one of Jesus's nicknames. His name is Rest. Well, that's one of the themes. So if you looked at my world, and you can actually visit my world, but right now it'd be like visiting somebody who's storyboarding Star Wars. So you're like, "Oh, I'm ready to watch your show." I'm like, "Okay, well, here it is. It's some cartoons on the wall on a piece of paper with crayon." And you go, "Okay, so where are we at?" And I'd say, "Well, this is Tatooine. This is Luke, and he's harvesting water on Tatooine." Okay, and then what happens? So that's called storyboarding, and that's what you do.
Giving the context, and you're putting the whole, putting the spectator or the audience in within immersed in that
Yes, yes,
the
that's
full
right.
context, right?
And so in 10 years, I finally understand what are some major themes, and there's options. I could show you 20 different themes I could build in, that could be top themes, but rest is one of those. So um, I can then choose that rest as you could call it an archetype. It's part of my overture that gets played out throughout my world. My world is expressed as a day. So here's the thing God told me as well. We have this thing that's often referred to appropriately as a wheel. So we have, um, when you look at a clock that has hands, what shape that is. It's round, like what? Like a world. And so we have songs by Journey. Wheel in the sky keeps on turning. And so the human wheel, Kruger Mellencamp, human wheels turn round and round as the clock keeps the pace. So the idea uh, of a world has to be matched to our human situation, which is everybody on the podcast. Guess what you did? Same thing as me. I'll bet you woke up and your face was on a pillow. Okay, well that's the alpha. That's where your world begins. All right. And where it ends is going to be on that pillow again. So that's omega. That pillow could be called the Jesus pillow. I am alpha and I omega. And everything that happens every minute from the moment you wake up till you go to sleep, well, that's called the Jesus world. And anything that's in your sphere of influence, anything that influences you or that you influence, that's your Jesus world. And it can become more Jesus-y or less Jesus-y. You can have more glory. We talked about high glory or less glory. And so you can repent. You can say, "I'm going to put more Jesus." And so that's the framework. You have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like the way that you're framing that. You're talking about, living in this Jesus world, and apart from His glory, I think one important aspect that we sometimes overlook probably is that he became flesh. He was born as a human being, and he had to go through all the hardships that you were talking about. The exactly of the different difficulties that we have in this planet. So I think it's very important that we also beyond the divinity, the divine Jesus that of course He is, we also recognize the human Jesus, and that we live through all those hardships, because that's where we can have that starting point. He was here as a flesh, so we can relate there, and eventually we'll transcend, and we're approaching towards Him, and we're finally gonna come into an embrace with Him. So that's something that we share with Him, and that the more that we can understand those traits. I mean, 'cause you were saying how to live into this Jesus world. So I see that it also within us to see all the qualities and the traits that He portrayed, as compassion, love. No, I mean, and love encompasses a lot, but all these fearlessness, courage, and if we take those human aspects of what He taught us, those fruits, let's say, we can, become better and live this life
That
within
is
this
right.
Jesus world,
And
right?
Jesus just taught to me when you started talking, He said, "Greg, use your indoor voice." And so I get excited, and he has to remind me, go slow so that you can go fast. Go low to go high. Go like a fool to go wise. Those are the three commandments, special commandments he has for me. So when we had a delay, podcast watchers, and I'm fine with delays because Jesus said, yeah, we're going slower. And so I had to slow down. And so, one of the crucial elements of building a Jesus world for me has been understanding that he wants, um, his principles applied in my life. And in order to do that, he had to make
Mm-hmm.
some movies for me. I mean, he let everybody else watch them. So if you guys have ever seen Groundhog Day, with Bill Murray, Jesus made that for me so that I would understand that is um, the core framework of a Jesus world is the repeating day. And so in that movie, um, Phil would wake up and he started having an existential crisis. Like, what's it all about? Because it just seems so monotonous, repeating. And I'll leave it to you to go to see the trailer if you haven't seen that, fellow watchers. But the point in that movie is that Phil learned to play out his day, the one that just keep repeating. He could just the same things were happening, the same scenes were being played out. He learned to blend it with
Yeah.
more and more love, authentic love, not just lust. So he had that period where he's just like, I'm going to do lust. So
Mm-hmm.
he's trying all the carnal, finite solutions.
Yeah, like the different universes or consequence or paths that he can take, and that's really philosophical. Come to think of it, yeah, I like that you brought that out. And please continue. You were saying,
He changes the thematics. Um, the um, uh, the music of his heart begins to take over his world. So it'd be like, yeah, we got to start with different themes. And so, like I said, you can have themes run throughout your movie. Directors do this. They go, red is our theme. So if you watch certain movies, you'll see red, 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 red coats, red this. That they blend in sound. They do it with music. That's what Jesus can do, and he can blend into your day a concept that I finally understood is like one of the biggest concepts that I received from him. It's called more Jesus. However much Jesus you have right now and you're used to, guess what? There's always more. Would you like more Jesus? And what happened to me in 2015? People say, what happened in 2015? I got more Jesus and I liked it. And I got hooked on it. I wanted more.
and it's eternal and everlasting. And that's what you're saying, and that's how I see what you're saying. That every day you get a bit more Jesus, and you become more towards that nature. I mean, because it's a never ending journey, and that it just augments you it makes you become more godlike if we can understand that term. It's emanating those qualities that you're talking about, that we have each day can repeat them and enhance them. Because if we don't, and that's what I like about the movie, now that you were referencing to it, that every day he learned something new. Even though he was doing the same things, there was knowledge and wisdom eventually, out of that, those experiences and that path that eventually led towards a better person. And I like that. And I you're referencing a lot to also the hero's journey. And one of the things that I always mention a lot in our conversations in this podcast, that we have to look at our lives as a story, and we have to put ourselves as a hero. And sometimes we're going to be maybe doing even, we're going to have failures, and we're going to err, and maybe even sin. But the way that we overcome that, and the way that we repent, and the way that we mend our ways is the path of the hero, because you come down and you understand also that process and that nature, and you want to overcome that nature, and become higher in your love and the way that you bring. So you eventually overcome that, and that's the beauty about God also, in Jesus, that every day is a new day, and every day you have a new opportunity to give more love, to be more grateful and
I
loving
agree.
with everybody.
Yes. And that day has been important to me. I call it the Jesus Groundhog Day. And so it's his day, and I'm going to live it for him. I'm doing vicarious work for Jesus. Um, and so he wants me to live on earth and like give up my life. Then I can find it. I want a life, Jesus. So he says, well, give it to me. Okay. And then I do what he wants me to do, or the best that I think he wants me to do, from sun up to sundown, and then I look for him to tell me how to change it. And my Jesus world is going to be way different than anybody else's, because I'm on that extreme. I can find some people that are on the extreme spectrum, and we have a lot in common. But I honor all, and God honors all the whole spectrum where people like, well, I could put some more Jesus in my life, and for them it might just be kindness. They're just like they're not like I'm not going to say Jesus more. I'm not going to read scriptures more, but they have that light like I do inside, and it tells them I'm going to be more kind. Well, that's the nickname of my best friend, my invisible friend, my imaginary invisible friend who is real, whose name is Jesus. And so, yeah, being kind. In fact, I was just posting that to Facebook. I said, "There's a candy bar named after my friend. It's his nickname, Kind. Jesus is kind. He's also rest. He's also love. He has many nicknames, but I like to call him Jesus."
Not through marketing, but through example. Jesus spread truth through presence, compassion, and action. So how do we live in a way that reveals the kingdom within us? How do we share Jesus? By the life we create, not just the words we speak. So how can we share this? And you were talking in our conversations, you were saying about the sharing these Jesus worlds and what's happening outside, the creation, the physical creation, not only the virtual creation of these Jesus worlds that, as you're saying, are becoming more visible in recent years and seem to be going to be going on for much more.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'll answer it first from a sociological perspective. I'm a social psychologist, and we learn to be human by watching what I call Jesus TV. I started watching Jesus TV the moment I was born. My mother put me on her breast, and I watched, and it's called modeling behavior. And I would her, she would, I would suppose, sing me songs or say, "Oh, you're such a cute baby." And I was starting to learn English. What do I have to do? Just watch and do what my body does. My body's hungry. I'll eat this. And over time, I learned this is a trusted person. I want this person. And in fact, she was probably the first word I learned, which was useful. And so there's this different stages of life where God gives us these senses: our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, sense of touch.
Yeah. It's a progression, and it's a progression of
Yeah,
that we start to
and
acquire.
so
It's very interesting. Yes, please
it
continue.
is through our senses that we actually get to see. It's like a program. I call it Jesus TV. So I have friends, and I'll say, "Hey, what's the latest episode in the Jesus Jonathan?" So it's a homeless person that lives on our property, and then he'll tell me what's going on in his life. And what I'm looking for in his life is God's handiwork. How's God working in his life, and how's it the same or different than mine? And so he's given us these tools inside of our bodies that allow us to learn of him, and and literally he's given people gifts of song or of movie making, and we can look at certain things and go, "Oh, that movie didn't make me feel good." Well, you just learned something, so it wasn't wasted. And people can say, "That marriage didn't that make me feel good. That was 20 years." Well, you learned something, didn't you? What are you going to do next? And that's what God cares about.
Yeah, and I bet there was an evolution.
It's a modern day parable. We're all looking at our phones. And I'm like, yeah, and we're learning stuff. And it might be stuff that's bad for us, might be good, but we're each given light inside of us so we can decide for ourselves. That didn't turn out good, but I'm going to do it again. And then we do it again. I go, it didn't turn out again. Good. Right. And then you look around at others people and you go, what are you watching? Well, I'm watching this. Oh, maybe I'll give that a try. And you go, oh, that makes me feel better. And so you put your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, your tongue on different things, and you learn. And God, my friend, is so patient. He's patient. He knows that we're learning. So learning about that friend. So that's what's like. What are you down here to learn? This is eternal life, to know the only true God and Jesus Christ, whom He has sent. I'm down here to learn about Jesus. Well, how are you going to learn about Jesus? Jesus tells me, just watch. I'm in all things and through all things. All the experiences you've ever had or others are having, you want to see me? So for me, it's like find Waldo. Can you see Jesus in Santiago and in the Center for Unity? I can. I can see it, Jesus. I can see you're doing a work. Others can't. There's others who can't see it, and that's okay. Not everybody can see all the elements when they go watch a movie. They just, "Oh, I'm just watching the story. I don't see the Bible in the Star Wars." Well, George Lucas did. He talked about, oh yeah, the story's based on good and evil. It's a Bible
It's
story,
everywhere.
but it's
Yeah.
okay. Just enjoy it like it is. Little kids do. They just don't. They don't go, "Oh, that reminds me of the Bible." God will do those things for you when and if He wants. That parable has helped me understand what He wants out of me. Mostly, He wants me to watch, which then makes the yoke easy and the burden light. Which is my main mission: is to exemplify. Um, Come unto me, all you that labor and heavy laden, and I will give you rest, the kind of rest that Greg exemplifies. So a lot of the things I do are very easy. I'm not trying to part the Red Sea. I'm just watching, and I'm making a sandwich for my friend. What are you doing? Oh, just watching. I'm interested how this is gonna. Looks like we're all gonna die if those Egyptians get to us, but this will be interesting. Well, what do you think's gonna happen? Well, I hope something miraculous. But let's enjoy our sandwich, and so that's helped me manage my anxiety because we live at a tumultuous time. What if we can step back and go, God's going to fight our fights, all right? And He might have us do a little something here and there. And the truth is, as humans, that's all we can do is a little something. Okay, I'll vote. That's what you can do. Okay, well, that's what you can do. You can't change the presidency yourself, but you can go vote. But if Jesus says, don't bother, then don't bother. And so that's been a framework that is tied to my Jesus world, is that um, we, like Mother Teresa said, we can do no great things, only small things with great love. And that points to like what TV is. It looks like you're not doing much. You are. Social psychologists will tell you that you are reinforcing certain beliefs. And you're like, do you want? So it's feed your head. When I got born again, he said, Greg, feed your head. Then he explained for 10 years what that meant. Put in front of yourself more Jesus, things that have more Jesus in them. So I have a Jesus. And anyways, sorry, I started going.
I mean, I'm trying to take a lot of what you're saying and all these different Jesus worlds and expressions and what's happening, and I'm curious because I mean a lot of people that watch the podcast. I mean, they know. I mean, we have different types of people, from different backgrounds that come. A lot of them are Urantia book readers, and a lot of what not that we preach because we don't preach. What we talk about comes from not the interpretation, but the information, let's say, about the same life that everybody knows from the Gospels about Jesus, but let's say from a different author. So what is your take, somebody as yourself from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? What was it that really drove you? Because I'm curious, and all of us in the Center for Unity are curious how you got to us. And and as you're saying, that drive that was done by Jesus, what brought you to us, and what was that message? Because I wanted to see, talk about
Yeah,
this
no,
in the
that's a
podcast.
good place. Um, so for the past 10 years, I've learned to surrender my will to Him and have Him direct my affairs. Let God take control. And so I've learned to not carrying Christ. That's another way of saying His will be done, but He's the one that gave me those words. So I'll say, people, I don't care in Christ. So years ago, my personal self, my carnal self, would like, oh, I've got these wonderful things I've received from Jesus. I ought to go share them. I ought to be on podcasts, because they're deep, they're rich. But He said, no, it's not time. And so I'm like, okay. And I waited. And I've been waiting 10 years. This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast. Oh, I could have. I'm a PhD. I know how to package myself and do all that stuff. And you're like, why didn't you? Jesus didn't tell me to. He said, "No, we're building your world." And I don't. This might be the last one I'll ever be on. But here's what happened. I was using AI recently. He said, "We're going to start using these tools I brought down to the earth to build my world." Because 10 years from now, people will be able to visit. It'll be visually expressed. It'll be like going to a website, but it'll be uh, the tools that are coming to us. We'll have glasses or whatever it is going to be, and you'll be able to fly to my place and go, "Whoa, it's like
Hmm.
I'm visiting some amusement park or some kingdom." I'd say, "Yeah, I like that better." A kingdom, and I
Yeah.
like to call this.
A sort of immersive
Yes, yes,
experience,
and
right?
Jesus calls it the Jesus verse, not the metaverse. And of course there'll be an olive verse. There'll be these religious themed platforms, and within those environments, within those spaces, will be individual spaces, and so mine will be one of many. And but those already exist in approximation. So this is coming to answer your question, Santiago. See, you already have a space. People already have Facebook profiles. People have websites you can go to. Right. And so that's the early version of what's coming. What's coming is going to be much more immersive than that. But nonetheless, I asked AI, is there anybody out there, organizations that are starting to do what it is that I've been doing? Because AI knows me now. I've used it enough. It understands what I'm doing. It's taught to me about the world building. And you are one of 10. I said, yeah, tell me about these organizations. So I looked at them. And when I got down to yours, I could feel it. Like, okay, I'm going to reach out. So I clicked on your website and it's, oh, there's a podcast. And so what I call it doing, different ways of saying it, just check the door. Hey, well, there's the door. Hey, they say I can put my name down here and do a podcast. And I felt, yes, do that. I could have done that hundreds of these in the last 10 years and I would have enjoyed it. But like, why didn't you? But I
Okay.
followed up, and this is the result of that. That's what Jesus brought me here. And so, yeah.
This is the consequence. This is a very interesting, and I love that story because and I think this is where we're at as a world. And I mean, although we're in a very polarized situation, and like the brighter the sun shines, the stronger that the shadows are going to be. One of the things that really drove the creation or the foundation of the Center for Unity was bringing the story of Jesus and sharing Jesus. We believe that modern technology, as you're saying, is been bridging a lot of the world. Not nowadays people are not learning how we used to, where we had books and we were taught in a different way. So one of the things that we do in the Center for Unity is create use these technologies to create all these different spaces, like the Jesus, the Discover Jesus, the Jesus chatbot. We have different resources where you can learn all the about his life. We have this podcast, so we invite everybody to join us to make use of this. And I thank our guest for his participation, and thank you for visiting us, for watching this podcast. I invite you to subscribe if you liked it, share with people, tell them about our conversations if you enjoyed them, and maybe we can share a little bit more of Jesus' love with everybody. So I'm Santiago Kneeland. This is The Divine Within. Take care and carpe diem. On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.